Welcome to Real Estate Radio Live, an informative and engaging hour discussing everything you need to know about the world of real estate. Your host, Tom K. Wilson, provides you with insight and guidance from his years of experience as a successful real estate entrepreneur on how to buy, sell, finance, and invest in real estate, and much, much more. Now, here's your host for Real Estate Radio Live, Tom K. Wilson.
Hello, and thank you for joining us today. And thanks for tuning in to our Real Estate Radio Live program, your number one source for all of your real estate needs and education. We're broadcasting from the number one radio station in the San Francisco Bay Area, KDOW AM 1220, the Wall Street Business Network. I'm Tom K. Wilson, your host for the 2 p.m. Wednesday edition of Real Estate Radio Live that comes to you Wednesday and Friday at 2 p.m. and Monday through Friday at 3 p.m. along with my co-hosts, Joe Kuchera, Mike D'Ambrosio, and Bobby Decker. If you can't make the live show, you can catch your podcast on TomWilsonProperties.com or on iTunes or on YouTube. You can also go to TomWilsonProperties.com to get a lot of real estate investor information. You can sign up for our weekly newsletter on economics as it relates to real estate and lots of background information about investing both in single-family homes and multifamily properties and commercial properties and syndications, and see what our latest product offerings are. I have back with me today our co-host for this program, Michael Morangiello, who is the founder of the premier and longest running real estate investor club in Northern California, Bay Area Wealth Builders, and also has a firm called Sunvest. And Michael's a many-decade investor, specialty in notes, flipping long-term holds, very creative investor, and he is also a great educator. So he often puts together events like the one coming up, which is going to include our special guest for today, who's with us, who is John Hyre. And John Hyre is a tax attorney and real estate investor out of Columbus, Ohio, with new strategies and information valuable to investors. Over 95% of his clients are real estate investors, and he saves them millions of dollars annually. I've heard John speak, and he's a very good educator and really connects with his audience and helps them make decisions and strategic moves that save them a lot of money and make good journeys in the future in investing. Prior to venturing out on his own, John's been an attorney for over 20 years, and he's been investing for almost 20 years. He worked for two of the big five accounting firms with very number of Fortune 500 companies. John's firm, IRA Lawyer LLC, provides tax services, tax planning, and small businesses and real estate investors. John, it's awfully nice to have you on the program. We look forward to having you out here pretty soon.
Yeah, glad to be here, and always enjoy visiting the Bay Area. Lots of write-offs with really good food.
Yeah, we tend to be foodies out here. That's for sure. And with a climate that lets us eat outdoors as well as in, and it's a pretty exciting place. Most everyone here in San Francisco Bay Area came from somewhere else because they were like-minded and excited about doing business and being very active, engaging in life. So it's an exciting and fun place to be, and we're awfully glad to have you come back. John, I know you'll be out to speak and have a workshop here with Bay Area Wealth Builders special event coming up, and we'll give details about that later. Let's talk about a few of the things that you're going to be talking about on that visit, and at least give folks some takeaways and maybe the kinds of things that they'll hear more about. So shall we talk a little bit at first about just asset protection? I think that's a big question for most investors, new and farther along. They're not sure whether or not that's something they should do, and if so, what kind do they do? And I know you in the past have indicated that there are cases where people maybe do too much or the wrong kind of entities. So can you lead us off a little bit on that topic?
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of discussion on that, a lot of subtle points, and as much as possible, throwing out as many permutations as possible because people have different situations, and so we try to customize. First is judge the client. I could have two clients who are financially identical, but because of different views or different abilities with admin skills, I would recommend different types of structures or setups. So there is some subjectivity when we're dealing with the client, and part of the object is to ferret out where they're at on that, and we're going to try to hit some of that during the workshop. Second, everyone thinks about entities, and they're important, and we're going to discuss them quite a lot. But let's remember, entities are what you need if everything else goes not according to plan. So the object is to not be sued, win if you get sued, make sure your insurance covers it if you lose, and settle if the insurance doesn't cover everything else. That's usually what happens, and we're going to talk some about that. Then we're going to get deeper into the entity structuring, and some of the things we're going to talk about is how to have privacy, how to reduce taxes. A lot of that's going to depend on facts and circumstances. So what do you do? What kind of business are you into? We're going to talk about when Nevada makes sense, or Wyoming or Delaware, and when they don't make sense. And that's a big one in the Bay Area. We have found that Nevada in particular aggressively markets to Californians, and oftentimes that marketing is, well, let's just say it has about as much truth to it as the last presidential debate on both sides.
John, Michael here. We're really glad to have you come out here. One of the questions I get, and I know Tom gets this a lot probably from some of the people he works with as a group leader, is there is a lot of discussion on entities. People buy and sell property. People buy and hold rentals. There's all sorts of different entities that can be used. And then there's that so-called dealer status that is associated with certain activities, especially if you're in the buy-sell business. Why don't you share with us and the audience a little bit about, dealer versus investor status, and touch a little bit on, corporations versus LLCs, et cetera.
All right. So dealer status involves real property that you eventually have made into inventory by buying and selling lots and lots of it. It's a facts and circumstances thing, meaning it's gray. You kind of know it when you see it. There's no way to avoid it if you do enough buying and selling. Then what you do is mitigate what happens if you do the buying and selling. And I would note you could be both a dealer in property but also an investor. It's not binary in that you're either one or the other. Some properties could be investment property, and the IRS defines those as properties held for the production of income, such as rent or for appreciation. Dealer properties are part of a ongoing buy-sell operation. So
and John, the IRS doesn't really define it, does it? I don't know. Do they? Is it tied to the original intent when you buy it? And is there a kind of a rule of thumb on the number of properties in a year you buy and sell before you're kind of flagged as a dealer?
No rule of thumb with numbers. It really depends on circumstances. I just saw a recent tax court case out of California. The people owned one property for 20 years, and the IRS said it was a dealer property, and they won at tax court mainly because there was constant redevelopment activity on the property. There was constant movement in terms of permitting and zoning and some rehab work, that it was always being improved for the purpose of selling as opposed to for the purpose of renting. So no rule of thumb. It really is one of those things where we got to hear all the facts, and then I assign a probability. A lot of the time I can't even tell you it is or it isn't. I can say the IRS is, 67% likely to win this in court, and therefore 33% likely not to win it. I mean, it can get really gray.
Boy, all of us techies out here in Silicon Valley and Bay Area just eat up the input of a really practical attorney and attorney advice that puts some statistical probability on it. We just love that. What we hate is somebody saying, I think maybe so, or not likely, or just put a number on it. We're happy.
Let me shoot back at you on the techies, because I do deal with a lot of clients in your area. I have them all over the country. The upside of engineers and software people and techies is they're intelligent, they're numerical, and they do work with probability. They follow patterns. The bad side is they can overkill on detail. I've had techies argue.
No, are you serious? Can that really happen with techies?
But then they don't want to pay for it. You give a guy who argues with you for an hour over $20 on $1 million project, and then wonders why you bill him $350.
Yeah, I understand that. I agree on both counts. But I find that techies make pretty good investors because they tend to make it based on analysis of numbers rather than emotion. And if they learn to not overanalyze before they make a decision, they can be very good investors indeed.
Yeah, I agree. Once they pick a number, a good, realistic number, and stick to it and calculate things in a consistent and conservative manner, it tends to work well.
Yeah.
But I would think you would love them because the number of questions they ask, I would think, runs up quite a bill.
Yeah, but they're also efficient. Once you explain to them the cost-benefit issue, they also tend to cut your hours by only asking the important, significant questions, which I, frankly, as a businessman, I respect it. Yeah. As a billable hours guy, I just have to have more clients.
Okay.
John, just back quickly, is there one entity that is better suited for buying and selling activity versus buying and holding activity?
Yeah. This is a very generic statement that we're going to explain in a lot more detail because it's important to understand why, not just the answer. So the answer, the short one for the radio is regular LLCs for buy and hold. And for dealer activity, it depends. Typically, we're going to look at an S corporation because of self-employment, Social Security, and Obamacare taxes. Sometimes we're also going to look at a C corporation depending on the bracket that the investor's in.
Okay. And just for the audience, the differences between C and S, the subtle difference.
An S corporation is like a partnership. The taxes that show up that occur in an S corporation end up on your 1040. You end up paying for it personally, but we are able to strip out some of the self-employment tax and some of the Obamacare tax. A C corporation is its own person for tax purposes. It files a return, pays taxes itself, and then there's another layer of taxes if and when you dividend them out. And there are some ways to reduce all of those, but it's functionally a separate person. It's not a pass-through.
Okay, wonderful. I know there's a lot of nuances, certainly, and I know that that's something that we're going to delve into a lot over the 2 days at the event coming up.
Mm-hmm. You know, and I think it's important to point out there's going to be a ton of Q&A and back and forth at the event. That's frankly the part I like the best because sharp people who are thinking ask a lot of questions that make me a better lawyer. I enjoy the answering. It makes me tougher because some of the questions are tough. And let's remember, for 2 days, within reason, I'm off the clock. And by within reason, if you follow me into the bathroom with a list of questions, I'm going to bill you.
So you're not billing during the 2 days then, apparently?
Not billing during the presentation period.
Only in the bathroom.
You got to be careful what you tell people because they will follow you. I'm dead serious. I'm not making this up. If I'm not careful how I say it, people will follow me to my room and demand free time. And I'm like, look, in my room you get free time, but it's not for the activity you have in mind.
That's good. All right. Well, we've got, when we come back, we'll talk with John some more about more of the asset protection and other topics. And what are some of the other things we'll cover here?
I think we'll touch on where to put things on returns and that sort of thing.
Yeah. All right. So John Hyre is a experienced investor and tax attorney, and he will be back with us in just a moment for some more good input. This is Tom Wilson on KDOW.
For more information on today's program, visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Welcome back to Real Estate Radio Live, streaming live on iHeart, TuneIn, and KDOW.biz. For more information on today's topic or guest, just visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Again, your host for today's edition of Real Estate Radio Live, Tom K. Wilson.
Thanks for being with us today, and we're so glad to have special guest John Hyre, who's a 20-year tax attorney and nearly 20 years of real estate investor experience, who's with us talking about the topics of taxes relative to real estate investing. And he's going to be out here with us in shortly. If you're listening to this program before, what is it, Michael? October?
The event is going to be Saturday and Sunday, October 22nd and 23rd. So coming up soon.
We'll give you more details on that. And co-hosting with me today is Michael Morangelo, who's the president of and founder of Bay Area Wealth Builders, the premier real estate investment club in Northern California. And also he has a company, Sunvest, that does a lot of note business and short-term, long-term buys and holds. John, let's talk a little bit on this segment about the value of self-directed IRAs and related topics.
That is my favorite topic. I think the number one tax savings issue or technique is don't pay tax on the income. I think a lot of your listeners are in the position I'm in, Bay Area, make decent income. They don't need all the income they have. They should be investing via 401ks, IRAs, Coverdale educational savings accounts, health savings accounts, and those can invest in almost anything. It's my number one growing practice area.
What do you find that many people are not aware of these vehicles?
I am amazed at how little the word is out that you can use an IRA or a 401k if it's not through your W-2 employer but set up through a side business, which is pretty easy to do. You can use those to invest in almost anything. I am amazed at how few people understand that, especially given the lousy choices in the conventional market. Negative interest rates and a stock market driven by government fiat instead of productivity and earnings. It's amazing to me that people aren't moving over in larger numbers.
Now, if you have a 401k with an employer and you still work for them, can you take advantage of any of these with that?
Normally not. There are a few exceptions out there. Legally, you could do it. The problem is the way the employer drafts the 401k agreement. Normally, their version of self-directed is, which of our mutual funds would you like?
So
now,
you can get your car any color you want as long as it's black, huh? So.
Yeah. Now, there is an indirect way. If they have a small side business, I find with tech people, a lot of them make, not a lot, but a few grand a year doing a side business. Mm-hmm. That's enough to get your own 401k that you can self-direct and contribute to instead of your work 401k.
Aha. Okay. All right. That's a good piece.
Yeah, that's a backdoor way. And also, if you have some earned income, as you said, from other sources, then they can move into other types of self-directed accounts. Isn't that not true?
Generally true. Again, it's going to depend somewhat on how the employer plan is drafted and how old you are and whether you separate. Now, if you've got an old 401k from an old job that you no longer have, that's clearly transferable.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
John, there's been a lot of discussion previously at the last presidential election about Mitt Romney, and some of the things he used with IRAs. And why don't you share with us a little bit about your thoughts on his use of self-directed plans?
It was brilliant. He invested in the deals that Bain did, and he invested through his regular SEP IRA. The guy had somewhere between 20 to 100 million in there that was growing tax-free. We're not entirely sure how he did it. It probably involved either options that the company issued, and instead of buying them personally, he bought them through his IRA, or it involved a carried interest, where the IRA was essentially employing others, not Romney, it can't employ him, but employing others to run the deals, and in exchange for their running it, they got a percentage of the profits, which should be, carried interest should be familiar to a lot of Bay Area people. It's pretty common out there, as are the options. We think that's how he did it.
Right, and of course the net result, though, is that the gain from these activities deferred taxes or may have avoided taxes altogether.
It is. It did not appear to be a Roth, so it's going to be a deferral. Whenever he distributes, he's going to get taxed, but he's going to have so many years of tax-free growth, and the mathematics behind that are incomparable in terms of the compounding, especially at the higher rates of return that he was getting. It was absolutely brilliant. He was way ahead of his time. He was doing this long before any of us ever even thought about it. It's a real credit to the man and his advisors.
Yeah, what a credit to his team that came up with that. We'll cover some more of these topics when we come back here after the break. We got John Hyre with us, calling in, who's an experienced tax attorney and real estate investor. And I always like having guests on in their areas of professional specialty that also are investors and know firsthand a lot about those kinds of direct experiences. And we also have with us today Michael Marangello, who's the president of the Bay Area Wealth Builders, that's having a workshop coming up here pretty soon, and we'll give you more details about that. Stay with us.
For more information on today's program, visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Welcome back to Real Estate Radio Live, streaming live on iHeart, TuneIn, and KDOW.biz. For more information on today's topic or guest, just visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Again, your host for today's edition of Real Estate Radio Live, Tom K. Wilson.
It's always a pleasure to have Michael Marangelo co-hosting with me as he is today, and we have with us John Hyre, a very experienced real estate investor as well as tax attorney. John, tell us what are some of the big flags that real estate investors should be careful about, and how they report their income and what they should do and not. I know you're experienced in supporting investors and clients with audits. Talk to us a little bit about that.
My favorite thing, audits. I love hitting back at the bully. I love doing it. I represent them all over the country. I go to tax courts. I've seen a lot. A couple things. When reporting, first of all, make sure everything adds up. Know what 1099s you're going to get, 1098s, all the other forms. Make sure things add up. That's the first thing that's going to trip a computer's trigger.
Yep.
Second, make sure it's on the correct line. To give you an example, if you're getting interest on a subject to or an owner finance, pretty much anything from a bank that's issuing a 1098, there are two lines on your return for interest. There's qualified and then other. You want to put it on other. In fact, if there's a doubt, just put it on other. We've seen audits from the qualified line not matching 1098s. And we win the audits, but it costs the client stress and time and money. That's no good. Another one is the first few deals you do of buy and sell, assuming that they were not rented out, put them on Schedule D as in dog, as opposed to Schedule C as in cat, because you don't pay self-employment tax. You're not yet a dealer. So putting it on the right schedule can change how things pay. I'd say the last one that comes to mind off the top, interest. Have a discussion with your accountant if they insist you have a quote-unquote trader business and are putting your interest on Schedule C, where you pay self-employment tax, and we've seen a lot of that lately. Make sure it goes on Schedule B, as in boy, where you don't pay self-employment tax, or at least talk to someone and see if there's enough business that you can get away with that.
Those are great tips, John.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
So, John, for the entrepreneur, for the real estate entrepreneur or business person, properly structuring these entities, using them, and obviously reporting certain information in the right way is very, very crucial.
Yeah, it's got to be done right. In fact, I'd say the number one failure on the part of entrepreneurs and especially real estate investors is not keeping good records, which means their reporting isn't good, and if they ever get looked at, their ability to follow through isn't very good. So keeping good records, it's basic, but it's not necessarily easy.
Absolutely. And John, I know that a lot of people, particularly here in the Bay Area and around the country, were hit hard when the Great R passed us, and we're coming out of it now. And maybe if we can't get into it in this segment, maybe we can in the next segment. But there's a lot of discussion about the taxation involving short sales and the so-called 1099 or 1099-C that might be issued, and how that might affect a client or customer that may have gone through that. Why don't you share with us your thoughts on that, and if you can?
Most CPAs are woefully undereducated on that. Real quick, there are three ways to avoid it that come right off the top of my head. A, if it's your own personal residence, there are a number of ways to avoid it. B, if you're insolvent at the time it happens. If you can show that your assets are worth, and that's a subjective number, what are they worth, less than your debt, you may be able to avoid some of the 1099-C income. Finally, if you're a real estate investor, there are very special provisions for real estate businesses where you can swap gain on a 1099-C for basis and other properties. And I lied, there's a fourth one. Do the math. We'll go through it, what I mean by that at this convention. But do the math. Sometimes there's a big enough loss on the property, it's going to offset the 1099-C.
Excellent.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Good stuff. All right. Thank you, John. We'll be back with more on how to, as an investor, best file your returns. And we've talked about asset protection, and we've got some more good information coming up for you here in just a moment with John Hyre and Michael Marangelo, who's here in the studio co-hosting with me today. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
For more information on today's program, visit reradiolive.com. That's reradiolive.com. Welcome back to Real Estate Radio Live, streaming live on iHeart, TuneIn, and KDOW.biz. For more information on today's topic or guest, just visit reradiolive.com. That's reradiolive.com. Again, your host for today's edition of Real Estate Radio Live, Tom K. Wilson.
Michael Morangiello in the studio with me today, co-hosting our guest, John Hyre, who's going to be coming out soon for a workshop and speaking engagement, talking about how you can, as a real estate investor, the kinds of things you do to maximize your advantage from a tax standpoint. Let's talk, John, if you will, a little bit about if you have an entity, that's great, but if you don't do it right and handle it right, it maybe isn't going to be doing you any good, and maybe some cases where you should be getting, where you're getting the wrong kind of entity. You don't even need an entity. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, a couple of things. If somebody from Nevada or Utah says you should do it, think twice. They're there to sell you things. They're there to sell you complexity, and they overcharge. So think twice. You have to be able to run these correctly. Entities are like children. They're fun and easy to create. And once you've got one, you're going to be spending a good bit of time and work and effort, energy, and money on them. So the entities need to be run correctly. The number one way to destroy an entity is commingling money.
Is doing what?
Commingling money.
Oh, Yep.
The company has to have its money. You don't cut checks for the company. You don't use the company to cut checks for other companies.
Yep.
You don't have 15 loan payables to your other 15 companies. You got to keep the money straight. And there are ways to move money from one company to another, right? If there's one company that doesn't have money and needs it, and there's another company, or you personally have the money to cover that, fine. There are ways to do that correctly. But what you don't do is have Company A buy things on behalf of Company B. It's a mess.
So you can loan money back and forth.
I would rather you not, actually. There's a better way to do it.
What's a better way to do it?
If it's anything but a C corporation, in which case we have to look at some details. So if it's anything but a C corporation, distribute the money to the owner, have the owner contribute the money to the company that needs it. If they all use the same bank, it takes you about 20 seconds.
Aha. Okay. That's worth listening today alone. And you got to keep minutes, right, and do all the right formalities?
It varies with LLCs and corporations, but with small companies, because the courts tend to be more skeptical of small companies, we urge overkill. So I do like resolutions, minutes, annual meetings, how you sign your name matters. You basically got to run it like it's a separate company that's not you, because that's the whole point of the asset protection. Somebody shoots a legal bullet at you. You put like a politician holding an infant in front of it to keep it away from the assassin, the self away from the assassin.
Mm-hmm.
You want to hold the company in front of you to take the legal bullet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
John, in California, there's a lot of promotion of and use of LLCs by people in the legal community, by seminar promoters and otherwise. But for people that own real estate, why don't you tout some of the advantages and the disadvantages of the limited liability company, particularly in California? As I understand, there is a concern over gross sales taxes, gross sales receipts, and taxation associated with that.
Mm-hmm. And what state you put it in, and single member entity issues.
Well, here's the problem, right? California is going to tax you the same way, whether or not you have a Nevada or a California entity. If you're doing business in California, they're going to hit you. And sometimes, even if you're not doing business in California, but you're resident in California, they're going to hit you. And there's not a whole ton I can do with that, not legitimately, because California is very expensive and difficult to deal with. But don't make it worse by setting up an entity, for example, in Nevada, paying a whole bunch of Nevada fees, and then turning around and paying the California ones when you find out you can't get out from under them.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to have to use the normal tax planning, for example, on rentals, having much higher depreciation, being aggressive and intelligent about how you depreciate a property, having lower income for California to tax to begin with because it's based on the federal taxation. But yeah, unfortunately, California, look, I'm sorry to say, you guys like to spend a lot of money on government. Well, they got to get it somewhere.
What about the single member issue? My understanding is that if you're just yourself and your spouse, that an LLC can be pierced pretty easily, and that really doesn't protect you.
It's less that it can be pierced more easily. Informally, that's probably true. It's that the charging order protection from personal creditors. So you have a creditor coming after you personally, and they want to get into the LLC. Yeah, if it's single member, husband and wife, or even if you have a nominal partner, a 1 or 2% partner, California courts probably aren't going to respect it because they rewrote the law. So the question is, do you want to have a real partner, which is a pain and costs money, or do you just accept that you live in a state that is virulently anti-business?
And these entities are expensive to operate. Generally, when you compare them to other states where you might incorporate or be domiciled, on average, I think you're looking at $800 per entity per year just for the formality to keep it alive. Is there some techniques in order to minimize that cost or expense?
None that I've seen that are legitimate, right? The only way you can get around that is if you have an entity in another state and you don't tell California, but you're taking another risk now. Right? You're misreporting to the state. That could get escalated to something you may not like. So unfortunately, I don't have a good answer on the $800 per year LLC fee.
Yeah, well, there has been discussion on using trust, and I know we'll cover that also during the 2 days. And of course, the trust or use of trust does not require a filing fee or an annual fee.
True, but it also typically does not provide asset protection. So the question then becomes economic. Is it worth $800 a year to get the protection? I'll tell you what it does influence. How many entities we set up. In Ohio, where I might set up 3 for a given amount of equity, in California, I might only set up 1.
Because of that expense, of course. Yeah,
yep.
Sure.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I often tell folks that come to me and ask about entities, and I say, well, I'm not an attorney, and here's some folks I can refer you to. But, most of them don't, I think, understand that, first of all, you have to have a problem. You have to have a problem you can't solve. You got to get sued. You got to lose a lawsuit, and the liability assurance doesn't cover you. And I don't know. I think Dykes talks about this some. That one of the things that a lot of people don't pay much attention to is things that you can do to avoid getting a problem in the first place. So, if you can, John, if you can hang with us here just a few more seconds. Yeah, just a few more seconds here. We're going to do a 2-minute wrap-up, and then we'll give them your website and talk about the workshop that's coming up. So we have with us today John Hyre, who's a tax attorney expert, especially in the area of real estate, and a long-term real estate investor himself, so he understands what he's dealing with his clients. And Michael Marangiello, our good friend, is co-hosting us here today. Come back in just a moment, and we'll let you know how to get to these workshops and how to contact John Hyre for more information. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
For more information on today's program, visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Welcome back to Real Estate Radio Live, streaming live on iHeart, TuneIn, and KDOW.biz. For more information on today's topic or guest, just visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Again, your host for today's edition of Real Estate Radio Live, Tom K. Wilson.
John, thanks so much for being with us today. Would you have a couple of just summary or wrap-up points and reasons why people should learn more and about these topics?
Look, as tax rates are getting higher, the tax dodges, the legitimate legal ones, of which there's still a lot, make more and more sense. Again, I can't emphasize enough, especially the investing through the IRA, 401k, HSA, or Coverdale angles. But all of it adds up. All of it adds up. Furthermore, we are entering not just a legal society, but a culture that is less business-friendly. The asset protection means more and more. If anyone's interested in more direct contact, I'm going to shamelessly self-promote.
Indeed.
Go to IRA. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I just said indeed. Please let them know.
IRAlawyer.com. That's IRAlawyer.com or realestatetaxlaw.com. And just to warn you, Bay Area people, it's a primitive website. It's essentially an online card. So you can get a hold of me. There are articles here and there. I do a newsletter, but it's pretty primitive.
You mean you have spent $25,000 on a fancy website, John?
Man, if you dropped 3 zeros off of that, you'd be closer to the truth.
Okay. Important thing is to be able to talk to John, and you can do that when he when he comes out here, and Michael will tell a little bit about that. John, thank you for being with us very much, and we'll look forward to your visit.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Yeah, we're really looking forward to John coming in. As you can hear today and your listeners can hear, he's just a wealth of information. And this is a very important topic. I mean, if you're in business or you own a business, you're going to get into business, this particular two-day event is going to be packed with a lot of useful information to assist you as an entrepreneur, customizing your own plan. And if you do customize your plan and you get it properly set up and structured, we're going to touch on asset protection, privacy, diversification, simplification, obviously tax savings, and estate planning. And I will say this to you, and that is that, and I'm sure John would agree, that, on average, people pay about 33% of their earned income in taxation, let alone what the state of California may be charging as well. And so if you can somehow minimize that or even eliminate most of it over a period of time, let's say 5 years, maybe 10 years, 15 years or so forth, that's just a huge benefit for folks, a huge amount of capital that can be put together to your benefit versus giving it to the government to have them spend as wisely as they do.
So if I figure that right, it isn't until May that you start working for yourself instead of for the government. Right?
That's about how it works out, yes. Yeah, and they have a never-ending voracious appetite, as it seems.
All right, have you given the dates here?
Yeah, let's. For people who want more information about this class, it's a dynamite, very, very, very great event. It's October 22nd and 23rd. It'll be held down at the South San Francisco
This is 2016.
Airport. Yeah, this is coming up in October of this year, 22nd, 23rd. For more information, they can go to our website, and we encourage them to get registered. This is coming up very quickly. They can go to www.bawb.info. Again, that's www.bawb.info. Look for the link for workshops. There's a number of incentives for you to come to the event, and we hope to see you there. It's going to be a fabulous 2 days.
Look forward to it. And Michael, thanks for being with us today to co-host John Hyre, and also go to TomWilsonProperties.com. The event is listed on there as well, and you can see what our latest products are and other investor information. Get on, sign up for our newsletter, TomWilsonProperties.com. And remember, the only thing that matters is what you do next.
You've been listening to Real Estate Radio Live. For more information on today's program, visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Tune in, log in, download our podcast. Discover more at RERadiolive.com. RERadiolive.com.